Sanders insists change has to be made by both players and fans. And again, I also will add in there too, me personally, I think a big change, and again, you're seeing it with them hiring him, there has to be a big change in administrative goals. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, the NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Man, am I the only one who's noticing right now? And again, I'm seeing some things in pro football. There's the draft coming up and everything like that. I do love the NFL draft. I am also going to be, first time I'm indicating this here, I am going to be live streaming the draft. Love every second. I might even have like maybe not a drinking challenge, but have one of those situations where, if you watch the election where it's like, you take a drink if this happens, take a drink if that happens. There might be something like that we have in place. However, we're going to do that later. For right now, I want to talk about college football because nobody's talking about college football. And that's the thing about college football is that basically everything right now dies unless there's some realignment news that happens sometime in late spring or early summer, something like that. We're not going to have much news. However, there's one team that has way more interest in it and way more smoke about this team than they should have. And it's the Colorado Buffaloes. The really shocking thing about the Colorado Buffaloes is if you look at them here, they went 1-11. And man, I mean, you think about that. There's absolutely no reason to talk about a team that went 1-11. They probably had a terrible recruiting class too. Huh? They're the 30th in 2023, the 30th ranked recruiting class. The Big 12 champs were 32, Kansas State, and one of the worst teams in the country, and arguably the worst team in the West Coast, was 30th. That doesn't make any sense. It's probably, I mean, you definitely won't see anything in the transfer portal either. Well, here we are in the transfer portal rankings, and Colorado's number 1. So they're 30th overall in recruiting, number 1 in the transfer portal, and they won one game last year in overtime at home against a team that went 4-8. Now, I know you guys know I'm being a silly goose right now because we all know the reason why everybody is so excited. It's because several things right now. One of them being your boy Deion Sanders. Here we are on ESPN.com, AP story. New Colorado coach Deion Sanders already making an impact. Well, and yeah, if in case you didn't know right there, the biggest impact he had was the fact that he brought in all those dogs from Jackson State. Continuing here, new Colorado coach Deion Sanders can't yet point to any on-field wins, but signs of a massive shift in mood and expectation abound at the school and in this city around what has been a forlorn football program. Hired in December after a highly successful run at Jackson State's head coach, the NFL Hall of Fame cornerback in the midst of running practices with his new team in preparation for Colorado's annual intra-squad spring game on April 22nd. I will also probably have analysis of that later on, just saying. The school announced earlier this week that the game, which also being nationally televised on ESPN, has sold out with more than 45,000 people expected to be on hand. It would stand out as the highest attendance for Colorado's spring game, eclipsing the previous high of 1,780 in 2008. The anticipated attendance will be higher than the combined total for the previous 9 spring games, according to the school. We haven't won a game. There's no impact right now. The financial aspect of what's going on, that's a blessing. Somebody's profiting really well, and I'm happy for that, especially this university because they deserve it. And to display and show what's here in your beloved city, I think that's a beautiful thing to bring to fruition. Sanders, popularly known as Primetime in his playing days, but better known now as Coach Prime, said he likes the way the team is starting to mesh. He can sense the eagerness and desire among his players and the students he's meant to turn around the program. And again, so far what happened here, a lot of players from that team, he basically told them in that very first intro, he's like, listen, if you're not ready, I'm coming. If you're not ready for this, you're not ready to work, transfer away. Several players transferred away, and unfortunately, one of them went to Boise State, a receiver. Hopefully it went there because he's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get on the field, not because he didn't want to work, but that's just me giving an aside here. But you can definitely tell that for Coach Prime, the amount of players were begging to transfer to Colorado from around the country, so you can tell that Coach Prime has brought about a big change to a formerly 1-11 team last season. He says, I can't wait for the spring game. Really look forward to it because I want to see the difference in the atmosphere and feel the feeling of the spirit of everything. Who is taking Sanders, who is taking over a program that had a losing record in its past 6 seasons, finishing 1-11 last season. I spoke to the School of Business yesterday, and it was phenomenal. Those kids were hungry. Every kid had a pencil and a piece of paper and taking notes, and they were on every darn word, every thought, everything I uttered. They were on it. They wanted it. I loved that. Sanders insists change has to be made by both players and fans. And again, I also will add in there too, me personally, I think a big change, and again, you're seeing it with them hiring him, there has to be a big change in administrative goals. Now, that's probably a bigger thing for the Pac-12 overall, but we'll talk about it later on. If we're going to change the game here, that means the fans have got to change too. We want to impact them as well. We want them to be ready for us like we want to be ready for them. If his players are anything like their coach, they'll be ready for prime time. Sanders attended the conference wearing a cowboy hat with a gold chain and a traditional coach's whistle draped around his neck. He was asked if he would like to see some of his players take on any of his football characteristics, as is sometimes won't be between players and coaches. He says, I hope so. God, I hope so. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. So you think about Coach Deion bringing in a ton of people here. Like I said, 1-11, 30th in recruiting, and first in transfer portal. They are drastically changing things right now. Again, I had said some things before because remember when I told you, I was like, the players and the fans have to kind of change their perspective here. The administration does too. The big reason why is because I think right now, and again, you're seeing the fact that not only is Colorado being talked about heavily in the preseason, in the games, in the spring games and things like that, they're also being talked about in realignment because, fortunately, the Pac-12, Brett Yormark deserves all the credit in the world, moved up to date. They were originally going to be going after the Pac-12, moved up to before, put some pressure on the Pac-12 right now. The Pac-12, USC and UCLA are leaving, and they're kind of in this weird dynamic where it's like, how much do we really care about sports? Do we want to stay together? Is academics really the most important thing? There's lots of questions that are being thrown around, and you can see that because Twitter is ablaze with a bunch of Colorado rumors. Jason Shear, again, from the Wildcat Authority, he says, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know the smoke surrounding Colorado moving is at an all-time high. And again, some people say, oh, where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know what's going on here. There's a possibility of Endeavor, the media group between the Big 12 and trying to convince people that they're leaving. I don't really know, but I do know that, again, Colorado is mentioned a lot in these realignment conversations. And this article was from about a month ago. Big 12 expansion speculation, Arizona, Colorado, odds-on candidates to lead the Pac-12 first. And then again, you can see the fact that Pete Thamel basically said Colorado and Arizona are the odds-on candidates to jump first to the Big 12, which remains open for business. And again, he says, after all, there's only so much nobility sticking on a ship that nearly everyone thinks will sink in 60 months, aka 5 years for those math majors out there. But the schools have company leaving the Pac-12 for the Big 12. And apparently here, according to the sources, and again, these sources have since become to be, everybody has their own source in this. That's all I'm going to say here. But it says right here that there's been at least minimal contact between the Big 12 and the Four Corner schools, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. So a big thing about this right now, new blood from Deion, the fact that they're also being named right now. Colorado is on everybody's minds right now. And again, I think that the good thing about this was, Deion said it before, you have to make sure that the coach, their players and the fans all are on the same page. What is the goal here? I think that the Pac-12 has gotten themselves into trouble because most of those Pac-12s, think about it, the Cal Bears are the most confusing team in the world. Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Jackson, Marshawn Lynch, a lot of great football players have not come out recently from the Cal Bears, and you're like, what the hell is going on? I think the big issue is that there was just a lack of, institutional want to be good at football. As a matter of fact, there was a committee that was set up by former Pac-12 players to try and reinvigorate this because of how much of a desire there is for this. This was a while back, so this wasn't this last December, but the previous December. The Pac-12 announces the formation of inaugural Football Alumni Council. And again, you see this right here, the initial alumni in the council, Scooby Wright, Brandon Sanders, Eric Allen, Justin Forsett, Shane Vereen, Alex Mack, lots of Cal players right there. Chad Brown from Colorado, Mike Pritchard, Mike Bellotti. Again, a lot of guys here that are kind of like, we got to try and start to find a way to recommit to football over here. Because again, if you think about this, that Stanford and Cal are technically, this is so crazy, they are the leaders of the Pac-12. Now, you think about that. Californium and Berkelium are literally elements that we all use, discovered at the University of California. Education is the most important. However, we're seeing right now that if a team really wants to be good and they want to kind of go to the next level, you can't just have buy-in from players. You can't just have good coaches. You have to have a buy-in from administrations. And I think that's the big thing that Colorado is doing here. As a matter of fact, I think it could potentially be causing a schism between the leadership at the Pac-12 and Colorado. And again, this is all hypothetical, but check this out. So Swaim Show and Greg Swaim says, if they didn't know before, Pac-12 schools are certainly now finding out that conference realignment ain't about no education. And again, I think he's 35 years of radio and TV, hundreds of men's and women's clients at NCAA. So again, Greg Swaim has got some good experience here. He is basically making the point here that the Pac-12 is finding out that, it's just cool the fact that you have all of that educational aptitude. However, all it takes is one, and then you guys are a sinking ship, because at this point, basically, if the Big Ten ever came calling for Oregon and Washington or Stanford or Cal or something like that, the Pac-12 is over at that point. How much they can keep this conference together, like I said, for 60 months, I don't know. But I do know right now that Colorado, at least in part, is doing their best to reinvest in football and change that direction. They're also being named in realignment. How much validity I have in this situation, I don't know. But Colorado is on everybody's mind right now. I seriously cannot believe that we were talking this much about a previously 1-11 team. But Deion Sanders, transfer portal, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, number 1 or transfer portal class, number 30 recruiting class, ahead of the one of the worst teams in the Pac-12, did better recruiting than the best team in the Big 12. This is absolutely shocking. And again, you're also seeing them being named in realignment here and there. How much validity? I don't know. But I do know right now, Colorado Buffaloes, 2022, they were 1-11, and they're one of the biggest storylines heading into the 2023 season. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. What do you think about this whole situation? Colorado went from nobodies to, oh my God, they're on everybody's mind. Where do you think they're going to end up this next season? Personally, I think that they would be shocked. I think that a 6-6, 7-5 season is capable. Remember, you think USC was, a 3-4 win team the year before Lincoln Riley got there, and they drastically turned that around. This is a 1-11. This is a really bad roster. Again, they did well with the recruiting class and the transfer portal class. I suspect 6-6, 7-5, and they would be jacked and go on from there. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. I am out.